Hi everyone, I'm here to talk to you today about the short report. So let's jump straight in. And I guess before we talk too many details about the short report, what you should know is we should talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, because we want you to reference properly and all that sort of stuff, and all of that information is here in the assessment information document. But specifically about the use of AI, it's good to read up on how we actually how we actually want you to use AI. So the decision that we've made is that you're able to use artificial intelligence, and of course the most famous one at the moment is ChatGPT, because the way that ChatGPT works is it's really good for, I guess, helping you work out where to start. Sometimes it's really hard to know, where do I start with my assignment? Where do I start with my APOD assignment? Where do I start with my short report? So sometimes ChatGPT is going to be really helpful for that. The thing that ChatGPT doesn't do though is it doesn't show deep understanding. It doesn't show, how you tie information together. It doesn't demonstrate your knowledge and your learning. So make sure that you don't depend upon ChatGPT, but you can use it without attribution. So I just wanted to make that bit clear. So if we look at the short report, you've got one short report to do, and you need to choose between two different topics. The first one is misconceptions and pseudoscience, and the second one is new telescopes and missions. So double checking all of the word count and all of that, double check the assessment information document for the latest up-to-date information on how many words. But basically there is no minimum word count, you only have a maximum word count. But for this first short report, we're basically asking you to answer the question of why misconceptions about climate change are so prominent, and what evidence is there for climate change, and what can be done about climate change. So what we want you to do is to briefly outline some climate change misconceptions and why those misconceptions might be kind of popular in society. We want you to go through the evidence for climate change, specifically referencing solar variability and whether solar variability has any impact on climate. We want you to then talk about a specific climate change event. It just needs to be super brief, but you need to link something, like research an event that has happened because of climate change. We have given you a list here of some climate climate change events, but you can use one, where you currently live or your hometown. You can use that as an example too. We want some possible scientific or engineering solutions to climate change. You have to include one recent relevant fact or publication or result that has dated from January 2022, and you need to reference in a particular style. So that's the first one, talking about climate change. The second report is talking about researching a new telescope or mission. So what we want you to do is we want you to choose a new telescope or mission that began collecting data in the previous 5 years. That means that the telescope or mission can have launched more than 5 years ago, but as long as it started collecting data within the last 5 years, that's totally fine. And we want you to describe the background scientific information that places the whole mission into context. So what we want you to basically think about is there's always a gap in knowledge that specific missions try to fill, but this gap could be quite big. The gap in knowledge could be exactly something to do with, galaxy evolution. How do galaxies get from, point A to point B? How do they get from nothing to something? And this is still kind of an unanswered question. How do galaxies look the way that they look, for example? Now, your specific mission or telescope isn't going to be able to answer all of that. It's going to have specific scientific aims, And so for the first point, we want you to just describe the broad context in which your mission fits. For the second point, we want you to discuss the actual scientific aims of the mission or telescope and how they're going to be answered by the mission or telescope. Then we want you to summarize any data that's been collected by the telescope so far, or any data that may be collected in the future. Explain how it contributes to answering those scientific aims and, filling in that gap in scientific knowledge. And again, you need to include a recent result. And we have specific requirements on referencing too. So if you keep scrolling down, then we can actually go into the marking, how you're marked. So quantity and quality of scientific content, these are the big ones. It says here it's out of 5, but this little footnote here basically means that this is all multiplied by 2. So these two first criteria are actually out of 10, so they're weighted very heavily. We then put structure and references. We also put a lot of emphasis on that, making sure we don't give you a structure, but just make sure that it kind of makes sense, you know what I mean? It needs to just flow logically. We've left that completely open to you. The references, we just need them in a specific style, but if you reference everything correctly, then you're good to go. And we have marks for length as well. So that's the short report. I hope you enjoy doing it. You get a choice as to what you do. It really is open to what you want to do. So I hope you enjoy doing it, and I can't wait to read them.